Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, The Synthesis of Yoga, with our beloved Ranga. We are in the sacrifice and the Lord of the sacrifice, the Yoga of Divine Works. Chapter, page 130, thus reveals himself to the seeker.
So, as usual,
Yes.
we will go back to the
Summary.
previous para summary and then we'll read further on. These are my words, okay? So, the yoga of Sri Aurobindo seeks integrality of the divine in every way, not satisfied only with one aspect. And since the divine is Satchitananda, the seeker of the integral path seeks integral knowledge, integral force, integral union with the Supreme, as well as the cosmic, beyond all which secretly lurks the universal existence. He is there everywhere. The integral yoga is not satisfied with one-sided aspects of the divine. Some elements, even if they seem to be overwhelmingly the sole and only truth, okay, but we should not get stuck only at one aspect. That is the integral yoga does not restrict itself only to the divine one, the higher hemisphere. It wants the divine multiplicity in the lower hemisphere also. This is something that the other philosophies are not agreeing to. They say the divine is not here. Everything here is anti-divine or undivine. So only he is there. But some they are saying, no, we will seek him here also. Okay, so it wants the divine multiplicity in the lower hemisphere also. That is why the integral yoga sees and understands the partial truths of all faiths, religions, philosophies, and yogic paths. Acknowledge their part truth. The truth of polytheism as well as monotheism is acceptable to the integral yoga. The divine contains all opposing principles, however jarring they may be to our understanding. The integral yoga accepts the partial truths of all these, but rejects their false concepts. Anthropomorphism and anthropolatry, however narrow their outlook, contain partial truths which the integral yoga accepts. As stated earlier, all imperfect human relations, when purified and transformed, can be used for establishing contact with the divine. Everything in the physical world, however narrow, however seemingly false, is related to the archetype above in the spiritual realm. In fact, the manifestation in the world of the divine, is precisely connected to this truth. The higher truths are indeed linked with their lower, limited, imperfect, diminished counterparts, their shadow forms in the lower hemisphere. Even the Vibhuti and the Avatar confirm the truth of this connection of the spirit to matter, because the Avatar is divine in consciousness, but here the body-mind life which is in the lower field of ignorance. That individual is extremely fortunate who can meet such a being who helps him to become what he intends to be. The Avatar is the promise of a progressive manifestation of the divine. It is a solution to the mystery of the apparent imperfection and suffering in the lower hemisphere. This is what he said.
So in nihilism.
Yeah. Nihilism, they are denying the lower hemisphere altogether. There is no such thing.
Yeah.
So, that's a Buddhistic philosophy. But they have a solution to the suffering. Yes. The suffering is solved. Now we come to the next para. Thus reveals himself to the seeker in the progress of the sacrifice, the Lord of the sacrifice. At any point, this revelation can begin. In any aspect, the master of the work can take up the work in him and more press upon him and it for the unfolding of his presence. In time, all the aspects disclose themselves, separate, combine, fuse, are united together. At the end, there shines through it all the supreme integral reality, unknowable to mind, which is part of the ignorance, but knowable because self-aware in the light of a spiritual consciousness and a supramental knowledge. So, now, the first sentence is very interesting. Thus reveals himself to the seeker in the progress of the sacrifice, the Lord of the sacrifice. The subject is coming at the end.
Yes.
Yes, reverse the old trend, like we do sometimes in poetry.
A little complicated, yes. But when you understand that it's at the end, no problem.
So, the Lord of the sacrifice thus reveals himself to the seeker, and how and when? In the progress of the sacrifice. As the sacrifice becomes more and more perfect, the Lord reveals himself proportionately in that way. That's what he's saying. Now, when does it begin and when can it end? It can end in the integrality, but when does it begin? At any point, this revelation can begin. Hatha Yoga is beginning at the body level. So at any point it can begin. It can begin at the body level, it can begin at the vital level, it can begin at the mental level.
And it can begin in time also.
Yes.
Maybe tomorrow for me.
Why not? Why tomorrow? Today.
I do want to ask you about the word aspects, which is capitalized.
Yes. The aspects of the divine are the personal and the impersonal, the individual and the cosmic, the saguna and the nirguna, okay? The finite and the infinite, that also is aspects of the divine. Then there are other aspects, the love aspect, the power aspect, the consciousness aspect, the substance aspect.
Oh,
he can be experienced as pure substance.
So he capitalizes aspects.
Yes. So, and that's what happens normally when you experience one aspect of the divine. It is so marvelously satisfying that you tend to think that that's more than enough, and that's the only truth. That's why so many yogis, they say that there is no God. There is only a state of consciousness, impersonal aspect of the divine. You get knowledge, you get power, you get peace, you get ananda, but nobody is there. The personal aspect of the divine is not revealed to you. And in Ramakrishna's case, it was the opposite. He had the experience of the personal God. He was seeing his divine mother and talking to her.
Yes.
And getting answers. So, but he had to get the impersonal aspect. And that's a very interesting story. A yogi comes and teaches him how to get the impersonal aspect of the divine. So, I think I mentioned it once, but very briefly I'll just tell. It's a very interesting story. So, this yogi, his name was Totapuri. He was a Hindi-speaking man and wearing only a loincloth, wooden sandals, and a water jug. Okay, because wherever he goes, you need water. So, nowadays we carry bottles, bottle of water, but he used to carry a jug. So, then he came and he saw Ramakrishna and he knew that he has got the personal aspect of the divine, but not the impersonal. So he tells him, sit down and I will show you how to do it. So he says, concentrate here in the middle of your eyebrow. Just concentrate entirely. Put your thoughts here. So he says, yes, I've done that. He says, what are you seeing? He says, I am seeing the form of the Divine Mother. So he says, no, Don't see the divine. Just concentrate there in an abstract manner. Still he cannot manage. So he gets angry. Totapuri gets angry. He looks about. They used to practice in a hut. Okay? And he looks about and finds a small piece of broken pottery or something like that. So he picks it up and presses it here. Even a few drops of blood come out. He says, press here. I'm telling you to concentrate here. Then he presses and he says, I'm sorry, but I'm still seeing the form of the mother. So he tells him, in your mind, take the sword of knowledge and cut your mother into two. So as soon as he does that in his imagination and he jumps into the formless, infinite Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And he keeps lingering there. It is so wonderful. He doesn't want to come down. And the story goes that for 2 months he was lingering there. The body was inert. And so he had to feed him and take care of him physically for 2 months. And so he had the experience of the impersonal aspect in this way. The formless aspect of the divine.
What a story. Wow. Incredible.
It's a very interesting story. Then there is a sequel to it. Now, Ramakrishna has got the formless and the form of the divine. He has got the experience of both. But this Vedantic, Advaitic philosophy, he knows only the impersonal. He doesn't know the form aspect. So one day it so happens, this is all the play of spiritual play of these. He was getting a tremendous stomachache. So bad was it that he wanted to just go into the river and drown himself. So, Dakshineshwar, now it's on the Ganges, Hooghly River. It's on the bank, built on the bank.
Yeah.
So he starts wading into the river to drown himself. So much pain is there. Wherever he's going, it's only knee-deep water. And Ramakrishna is standing on the bank of the river and having a good laugh. He's saying, you're trying to do that? Then he says, the solution to your problem is pray to the Divine Mother, the personal aspect of the Divine. So this is how he makes him understand that you can have a relation with the Divine in a personal way. So both get what they did not have earlier. In our mother's case, she approached to the personal aspect, through the psychic. In Sri Aurobindo case, it started with the impersonal aspect of the divine. In the jail, he saw Sri Krishna in person. Sri Krishna was teaching him the Gita, teaching him the Vedas. He even felt that he is protecting him under the shade of the tree. It is Sri Krishna who is giving him the shade. So that was the personal aspect of the divine. That's what you mean by aspects. Okay? So, at any point, this revelation can begin. In any aspect, the master of the work can take up the work in him and more press upon him and it. Okay? And what is that it? The sacrifice, the sadhana. And for the unfolding of his presence So what Srimad is saying is, a time comes when the sadhak, the divine comes down and almost does the sadhana for him. That is what Mother used to do in the beginning, when there were only about 25-30 sadhaks. Early 20s. Mother came in 1920. No? She came back for the last time in 1920. So up to 25, 26, not 26, 26 was the Siddhi day, the overmind descent. At that time, Sri Aurobindo handed over the entire charge of the ashram to her. 1926. But she was doing the sadhana for them. She would tell, surrender to me and I will do the sadhana for you. You don't need to, you just surrender to me. And Ramakrishna used to say very interestingly, give me your power of attorney. You know what a power of attorney is? If you have a problem, legal problem, and the lawyer comes to you, you sign a paper saying that I depend on you fully and you can take action for my benefit. I agree to whatever you do. So this is what he used to say. Give me your power of attorney, I'll do the job for you. Okay, so in time, all the aspects disclose themselves, separate, combine, fuse, are united together. So these are the aspects. You may have only love in the beginning, you may have only knowledge in the beginning, you may experience a bit of power in the beginning, but afterwards, in time, all these become one. That's what he's saying. All these are unified together. At the end, there shines through it all the supreme integral reality, unknowable to mind, which is part of the ignorance, but knowable because self-aware in the light of a spiritual consciousness and a supramental knowledge. So the complete harmony of all these aspects comes at the supramental level.
But still unknowable to mind.
Yes, to the mind. Our mind as it is now.
Yes.
But that consciousness in the mind can migrate, go up and into higher levels. Then you can know the consciousness can know it, but not the mind. We go to the next para?
Yes.
This revelation of a highest truth or a highest being, consciousness, power, bliss and love, impersonal and personal at once, and so taking up both sides of our own being, since in us also is the ambiguous meeting of a person and a mass of impersonal principles and forces, is at once the first aim and the condition of the ultimate achievement of the sacrifice. The achievement itself takes the shape of a union of our own existence with that which is thus made manifest to our vision and experience, and the union has a threefold character. There is a union in spiritual essence by identity. There is a union by the indwelling of our soul in this highest being and consciousness. Indwelling. Okay? There is a dynamic union of likeness or of oneness of nature between that and our instrumental being here. The instrumental, we'll discuss it. The first is the liberation from the ignorance and identification with the real and eternal. Moksha Sayujya, which is the characteristic aim of the yoga of knowledge. The second, the dwelling of the soul with or in the divine. Samipya Salokya is the intense hope of all yoga of love and beatitude. The third, identity in nature, not in soul, in nature, likeness to the divine, to be perfect as that is perfect, is the high intention of all yoga of power and perfection or of divine works and service. Thus combined, the combined completeness of the three together, founded here on a multiple unity of the self-manifesting divine, is a complete result of the integral yoga, the goal of its triple path and the fruit of its triple sacrifice. So, he is saying that we combine Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga. So in Jnana Yoga, you have what is called the Sayujya Mukti, union with the divine. In Bhakti Yoga, that means the yoga of devotion and love, you have nearness to the divine, intimacy with the divine, samipyam. Samipyam is nearness, intimacy with the divine, but also salokya, living in the same world as the divine. You can live in the Ananda Loka, you can live in the Brahma Loka. These are all different worlds and you can live in them. Okay, so, and the third one is putting on the nature of the divine. Sadharmya Mukti. He has not mentioned that, but sa dharme mukti. So there are three types of liberations. Liberation in knowledge, sa yujya mukti. Liberation in love and intimacy with the divine, sa lokya and samipya, and sa dharmya. You put on the nature of the divine. So these are the three works. Sri Aurobindo would like the integral yoga to combine all the three. Okay, so he's probably expanding on the idea. A union by identity may be ours, a liberation and change of our substance of being into that supreme spirit substance, of our consciousness into that divine consciousness, of our soul state into that ecstasy of spiritual beatitude, or that calm eternal bliss of existence. A luminous indwelling in the divine can be attained by us, secure against any fall or exile into this lower consciousness of the darkness and the ignorance. The soul, ranging freely and firmly in its own natural world of light and joy and freedom and oneness. And since this is not merely to be attained in some other existence beyond, but pursued and discovered here also, it can only be by a descent, by a bringing down of the divine truth, by the establishment here of the soul's native world of light, joy, freedom, oneness. A union of our instrumental being, no less than our soul, of our soul and spirit, must change our imperfect nature into the very likeness and image of divine nature. It must put off the blind, marred, mutilated, discordant movements of the ignorance and put on the inherence of that light, peace, bliss, harmony, universality, mastery, purity, perfection. It must convert itself into a receptacle of divine knowledge, an instrument of divine willpower and force of being, a channel of divine love, joy, beauty. This is the transformation to be effected, an integral transformation of all that we now are or seem to be by the joining, yoga, of the finite being in time with the eternal and infinite. So Sri Aurobindo is not satisfied only with liberation. Liberation is the first step. But how do you transform the lower? There has to be a descent. Descent of what? Descent of knowledge, descent of consciousness, descent of power, descent of ananda into the body-mind life.
So it's an involution.
Yes. Involution at the individual. The involution is there at the universal level.
Yes.
But this has to be
in the individual.
I wouldn't call it an involution.
Oh.
Because involution means it is disappearing and hiding itself.
So it's a descent.
It's not hiding, it's open. The love is coming and your whole body is feeling the love. The power is coming and you are utilizing the power. It's not hidden.
Okay.
So you couldn't call that involution.
No, it's a
rather manifestation.
Or descent.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's why his yoga, first you ascend there, realize the divine consciousness, power, bliss and all, but the body-mind life is remaining here without all that. Then you have to make the effort to bring it down here into this one. You climb to the terrace, but what you see in the terrace, that infinite, you bring it down here into the body-mind life. That is difficult. That is not easy. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the substance is very dense here. It's like if you you are on the seashore or you are in the middle of the sea, okay? You take a torch and shine it. How deep will it go? 5 meters, 6 meters? But it won't go further down because it's dark. So you have to take a even more powerful light so that it goes down. So the principle is this. If you want this divine light, power, ananda to come down, you have to go even higher up. Then you get more power. So the transformation of body, mind, life can occur only at the supramental level fully. If you go to the spiritual level of consciousness, you may be able to transform your mind, but not necessarily your vital. But if you go a little higher up, even the vital get transformed, but not the body.
In the overmind?
The overmind you can transform, not the body.
Not the body.
But you can transform your mind and vital. It will become pure.
Okay.
So that's what he's saying here. So he wants all to be there. Even the body has to transform. It has not yet happened, but it will happen in future. He has expanded on the idea of the three muktis. Unity with the divine, living in the same world as the divine, or intimacy with the divine and putting on the nature of the divine. All the three. We read the next para?
Yes.
All this difficult result can become possible only if there is an immense conversion, a total reversal of our consciousness, a supernal, entire transfiguration of the nature. There must be an ascension of the whole being, an ascension of spirit, chained here and trammeled by its instruments and its environment to the sheer spirit free above, an ascension of soul towards some blissful super soul, an ascension of mind towards some luminous supermind, an ascension of life towards some vast super life, an ascension of our very physicality to join its origin in some pure and plastic spirit substance. And this cannot be a single swift upsoaring, but like the ascent of the sacrifice described in the Veda, a climbing from peak to peak, in which from each summit one looks up to the much more that has still to be done. At the same time, there must be a descent too, to confirm below what we have gained above. On each height we conquer, we have to turn to bring down its power and its illumination into the lower mortal movement. The discovery of the light forever radiant on high must correspond with the release of the same light secret below in every part, down to the deepest caves of subconscious nature. And this pilgrimage of ascension and this descent for the labor of transformation must be inevitably a battle, a long war with ourselves and with opposing forces around us, which, while it lasts, may well seem interminable. For all our old, obscure and ignorant nature will contend repeatedly and obstinately with the transforming influence, supported in its lagging unwillingness or its stark resistance by most of the established forces of environing universal nature. The powers and principalities and the ruling beings of the ignorance will not easily give up their empire.
Whoa.
So, it's a long journey,
Yeah.
and we should not be too impatient. That's what he's saying. The last one, there is again an image. Okay? So I'm very fond of using images. The powers and principalities of the ruling beings in the ignorance will not easily give up their empire. So, the image is principalities, ruling and empire. So it's like, sometimes you have a vassal state. I forgot some examples, but I think there's some places there are like that. There is a independent country, if you want, but it doesn't have its own government. It is ruled by some other place. Okay, So that's what a principality is. Something similar, but not now. But at one time, Nepal also, you could consider it almost a principality of India. They would guide them in every way, but they had their own. So that's the image he is using, okay? And ruling beings of the ignorance. Who are these ruling beings of the ignorance? The vital powers, the mental gods. These are all, they have a say in the ignorance, and they will not easily allow people to escape.
So they control the human being.
Yes, very much. That's what he's saying. Okay? They will not give up easily their empire. That's what he's saying.
It's very strong, huh?
Yeah.
Because he speaks of a battle, a long war.
And which seems
with ourselves.
Interminable.
Interminable also, yes.
So, whereas in he's talking about the integral yoga. Whereas in the other yogas, it is not like that, because you are neglecting this. You are saying, oh, this is difficult. Okay, I don't bother about it. I am satisfied by going there. I don't care about my body-mind life. I don't bother. My consciousness has gone there and I am happy. So, very often these yogis are perfect in consciousness. But their body-mind life, in their ordinary life, they are most ordinary human beings.
So what happens when they reincarnate?
Pardon?
What happens when they reincarnate?
They will carry part of that, but very often they may not even incarnate. Because their soul is liberated.
Yeah.
They may not incarnate.
Got it.
But Sri Aurobindo wants to incarnate again and change even the body-mind life. That's the whole idea. At first, there may have to be a prolonged, often tedious and painful period of preparation and purification of all our being till it is ready and fit for an opening to a greater truth and light or to the divine influence and presence. Even when centrally fitted, prepared, open already, it will still be long before all our movements of mind, life and body, all the multiple and conflicting members and elements of our personality, consent or consenting, are able to bear the difficult and exacting process of the transformation. And hardest of all, even if all in us is willing, is the struggle we shall have to carry through against the universal forces attached to the present unstable creation, when we seek to make the final supramental conversion and reversal of consciousness, by which the divine truth must be established in us in its plenitude, and not merely what they would more readily permit, an illumined ignorance.
Oh.
So that illumined ignorance is exactly what the others are satisfied with that. At first, there may have to be a prolonged, often tedious and painful period of preparation and purification of all our being till it is ready and fit for an opening to a greater truth and light or to the divine influence and presence. So, there he is giving you all, it can be also a greater truth is possible, or only light is possible, or a divine influence and presence also is possible. So, purification is very necessary.
Prolonged and tedious.
Yes. And how do you purify?
Painful.
Pardon?
Painful.
Yes. Because you have built up your nature through many lives. And all that is stiff and well formed. So you have to break that form and remake it's like completely renovating a house. Some walls have to be broken down, made wider. There has to be repair of many things. So exactly in the same way, the body has to be rebuilt. The mind has to be transformed. Lot of work is there to be done in this. And this work of purification, you do it in 3 ways in the integral yoga. Constant remembrance, aspiration above, surrender to the divine, and rejection of all that is limited and false in you. Triple transformation. So this is what he says in the very first pages of the Mother. He says this labor is threefold. Constant aspiration above, constant surrender to the divine, not fighting against circumstances. Accept the circumstances and see how it is helping you. We often don't accept that. When we meet an obstacle, we wonder how to solve that problem. Accept it calmly because the divine is having an intention in giving you this problem. So that's the surrender. And rejection of all that is not pure in you. Selfishness, anger, irritation, ignorance, self-will, all these are to be. So that's a purification. It is ready and fit for an opening to a larger, greater truth and light out of the divine influence and presence. Even when centrally fitted, prepared, open already, it will still be long before all our movements of mind, life and body, all the multiple and conflicting members and elements of our personality consent or consenting are able to bear the difficult and exacting process of the transformation. We'll look at this a little carefully because he is very interesting what he says. Even if centrally fitted, the word central being he uses for the psychic and the self. Centrally fitted. Even if you have realized yourself or you have realized your psychic being, that's not the end of the journey. There's a lot more to be done still. And what is that lot more to be done? You have to change your mind, you have to change your vital, and even the body has to be free of disease and wrong habits. So this is what he means by centrally fitted. Even when it is centrally fitted, prepared, open already, it will still be long before all our movements of mind, life and body, all the multiple and conflicting members and elements of our personality. Now the conflicting members is the duality that you face in the physical world. There is, you have to get beyond all the dualities, the conflicting members. He has described this in many ways, so I'll just give you one or two examples of what are the conflicting members. You have to discipline yourself. Discipline is necessary, na? But is freedom not necessary? Freedom also is necessary. And the conflict. Freedom is made less with discipline. So this is one example of conflicting. Then there is the other aspect of justice and love. They also can be conflicting principles. Suppose there is a prisoner who has come, and he is standing in front of you. He is guilty of his crime. He is guilty of his crime. Are you going to use the principle of love and compassion, or are you going to use the principle of justice? They are opposites. If he has committed a crime, justice demands that he should be punished. But love says no, have compassion and give him another chance or transform him. So this is what he means by conflicting members. I'll give you the best example of conflicting member. You want to say something. Sri says in the record of yoga, you must be master of yourself. You must be master. But you must also be a servant to the divine. So, Aishwaryam and yet total surrender to the divine. How can you be master and surrender at the same time? That's what the integral yoga is demanding. That's what it means by the conflicting members. So, elements of our personality, consent or consenting, even if they are willing, are able to bear the difficult and exacting process of transformation. And hardest of all, even if all in us is willing, is the struggle we shall have to carry through against the universal forces attached to the present unstable creation when we seek to make the final supramental conversion and reversal. There are hostile forces, and there are even the gods sometimes oppose you. They don't necessarily help you. So these are the forces that you have to fight against.
But they are attached to the present unstable creation.
Yes. The unstable creation is the movement all the time in the physical world. There is no stability. The other consciousnesses above, level 2 and level 3, there is stability. There is no movement. They are typal worlds. Okay, so that's what he's saying. Then the supramental conversion and reversal of consciousness. This reversal is very interesting. He speaks about it very often. So does Mother. At present, the physical world is real to us and the inner world is not real to us. Reversal of consciousness, the inner becomes more real and the outer only becomes a shadow play. That's a reversal of consciousness. Okay, so it is for this that a surrender and submission to that which is beyond us, enabling the full and free working of its power, is indispensable. As that self-giving progresses, the work of the sacrifice becomes easier and more powerful, and the prevention of the opposing forces loses much of its strength, impulsion, and substance. Two inner changes help most to convert what now seems difficult or impracticable into a thing possible and even sure. There takes place a coming to the front of some secret inmost soul within, which was veiled by the restless activity of the mind, by the turbulence of the vital impulses, and by the obscurity of the physical consciousness. The three powers which in their confused combination we now call our self. There will come about, as a result, a less impeded growth of a divine presence at the very center, with its liberating light and effective force, and an irradiation of it into all the conscious and subconscious ranges of our nature. These are the two signs, one marking our complete conversion and consecration to the great quest, the other the final acceptance by the divine of our sacrifice. So, what he's saying here, he has said earlier also, he says there are two grappling hooks by which you can start the yoga. One is the psychic being and the other is the self. So he's saying the same thing here. The inmost soul within, which was veiled by the restless activity of the mind, is a psychic being. And then the other one is the less impeded growth to the divine presence at the center. At the center, he is using the word center again for the self. So these are the two ways you can start the quest. That's what he's saying. So we stop here today.
Thank you, Ranga. Namaste all.
Chapter 5.